OJ_Simpson said, someone told me about the jammer. I don't like to charged enemy unit.
Left engine failure. Right engine failure. Right top strike.
Raise gear. Clutch. You've got a car on your way. Stall. Ethan said, "Blue, why are the stratolenses just firing at nothing?" Super said, "Bad day to be in every podium." Engine fire. Stall. Dredging Thief said, "He stepped on my clean white sheets with their boots." Palermo Bowman said, "Can someone please donate?" Hamburger said, OMG. Left engine fire. Jed said, Yamame really knows how to exploit this game, eh? Jed said, congrats up. Yamame.Tuki said. Jed said, all Sam's down in 6 minutes. Hamburger said, LOL. Yamame.Tuki said, LOL. Jed said, AA is useless. Jed said, radars are useless. Hamburger said, fake news. Jed said, you should make some YouTube vids to show others how to exploit the dev homicides. Hamburger said, then they would get patched though. Dr. Swoz said, would they though? Dr. Swoz said, LOL. Hamburger said, 50-50. The Lazy Leakin said, holy. Dr. Swoz said, LOL yeah. Yamame Doc Tookie said, hopefully I did it already. Jed said, just getting lubed up for the Strata nuke. Jed said, at least there's a countdown timer for that. Lazy Leakin said, was a good run. Hamburger said, how is bro already in an infrared? Dr. Swoz said, shoot stuff LOL. Hamburger said, real. Jed said, he spawns, flies 1 foot above the Gorand and barfs AGM-68S. Hamburger said, LOL. Hamburger said, don't we all? Jed said, normally flying low means the Taliban shoots you with a man-pack. OJ_Simpson said, why would my allies shoot at me? Jed said, Yamame knows RTV is for losers. Missile said, do you tryhard or eat the missile? Duke Dankin said, pile drivers to send drift behind that Tusco Salvo. The Lazy Legion said, fly my boy FLYYY. Yamame.Toki said, the enemy Medusa up. Yamame.Toki said, and it's wrong chat.
Right engine fire, left engine fire.
Reflect 0R set, drift. Jed said, yes. Spectral_Ace said, sad it didn't count as kills. Jed said, Yamame. Jed said, my boy. The Lazy Legion said. Jed said, Yamame with DEFS find ways to click through maps in Halo and FOC PPL. Cash said, how many nukes was that? Hamburger said, a lot. Cursory Raptor said, bunches. Refect 0R said, no we have no dark reaches. Refect 0R said, I just got rank 5. Jed said, I think a suicide run should have a respawn time penalty. Jed said, DEVS are you listening? Lucas said, no. Tanker Style said, did Kala lose all their munition bunkers? Tanker Style said, at major airfields. Jed said, make Yamame wait 3 minutes to respond when he noses down. Uka said, have you tried killing Yamame?
Right engine fire.
OJ_Simpson said, no. Tanker Style said, how would you effectively implement a penalty for suicide run? Tanker Style said, without problems. Duke Dankin said, add pilot's resource, generated by an academy building like warheads and enrichment plants. Sumayak_Defender said, limited number of pilots per player, with slowish rigging. Jed said, Yamame launch at the ships then jump out and jam them with the DUSA. Jed said, do it now. Jed said, do it. Tanker Style said, the pilot thing is a good idea. Big Tin Kuka said, timer on death. Tanker Style said, that would also make it a better idea to go rescue the pilots. Spectral_Ace said, what did those fire at top left? Arnold said, team chat. Jed said, Strato nuke my boys. Hamburger said, LOL. Jed said, you can't be seen even though this you have studied the blade. Sumayak_Defender said,
Right engine fire.
Sumayak_Defender said, one made it through. H. Costanza said, LM. Refact 0R said, through. H. Costanza said, LMAO. Hamburger said, I'm loving it.
Left engine fire. Stall.
Refact 0R said, it's a good thing Jackknifes didn't die. Yamame.Toki said, you mean invincible JKS? Jed said, Yamame Tusco our ships then jump out and jam them. Refact 0R said, why does this guy want to lose so badly? Arnold said, Team Chat bet. Arnold said, as well. Yamame.Toki said, no, I'm landing, watch me with camera. Jed said, Yamame can usually end a game faster than this. It is a pleasure to experience. Jed said, wars are won by one guy. Hanker Style said, what is bro on about? NS Doppler said, Jed, please shut the up. Semi8_defender said, I second that minus the profanity. Yamame.Toki said, to be honest, I don't really understand what he's saying. NS Doppler said, your glazing bores me, child. NS Doppler said, this is like insane glaze or something. Dr. Swo said, kiss him on the mouth. Hamburger said, LOL. Yamame.Toki said, LOL.
Right engine.
Hanker Style said, do hardened aircraft shelters carry nukes or not? Duke Dankins said, why? Duke Dankins said, yes. Hanker Style said, I see. Duke Dankins said, not many. Refact 0R said, My little Coney said, Tice woes. Arnold said, we beat to get the carrier. Jed said, Yamame. Jed said, did you land for suicide? Yamame.Toki said, you killed me. Sumaye_defender said, what does it matter? Sumaye_defender said, it's the meta. Yamame.Toki said, no, he shut me down with AAM. Sumaye_defender said, ah. Jed said, gathering data for my chat with Mitch. Big Tenkuka said, oh lol, spending 10 minutes prep lacing hexhounds cause only losers lose. Jed said, Yamame is gonna get patched out. Yamame.Toki said, what was him? Style said, no one knows. Yamame.Toki said, JKS changed the game. Yamame.Toki said, frowny face. Sumaye_defender said, incredible. Sumaye_defender said, you're a hero dude. Yamame.Toki said, Spod killed my baby. Duke Dankins said, just get more jackknives in the fight and we might have a chance. Tanker Style said, arrow sentries are terrifying to the average brawler user. Said, you someone's using the Thunderbird's Vortex Live. Yamame.Toki said, FOX3. Yamame.Toki said, PDS shut down. Jade Tenkuka said, GG. OJ_Simpson said, "Sready man." OJ_Simpson said, "Misclick."
Fire. Stall.
Schmeat76 said, "I'm officially broke if this doesn't work." Yamame.Toki said, trying to neutralize the South Bosque Liag. The Lazy Legion said, oh. Big Tenkuka said, OOF. The Lazy Legion said, dude that scared TF out of me. Schmeat 76 said, check the runway before takeoff. The Lazy Legion said, I'm so sorry LMAO. Schmeat 76 said, nah it's all good. Schmeat 76 said, I still got the sortie. The Lazy Legion said, hell yeah. Schmeat 76 said, sorry for hitting you, I probably could have swerved out of the way. The Lazy Legion said, nah I'm pretty sure that was on me. I thought I heard an engine but I couldn't see a plane. The Lazy Legion said, TT. Yamame.Toki said, revetments on the South Bosque Lie are eliminated. Duke Dankin said, finishing it off now. Sumaye_defender said, GG guys, peace. OJ_Simpson said, by a crit shooting M's from Spong LOL. Spectral_Ace said, y'all can't shoot me down easy at all XD.
Right engine fire.
Spectral_Ace said, took 16 missiles the first time, another 11 didn't get me the second, hell yeah. Millermo Borno said, "Great run, Duke." Malagio said, "That's what I get for being greedy and trying to throw my M's." Schmied76 said, "Coward revoker." Schmied76 said, "Get back here and fight me like a man." Schmied76 said, "I won, I think." Schmied76 said, "In my heart I did." Malagio said, "We all are winning as long we are having fun." Smiley face. Yamame.Toki said, "He is right." Schmied76 said, "True."
Stall.
OJ_Simpson said, imagine having fun as a factor. Honorary Sloth said, you're supposed to be dead, OJ. My Little Coney said, LMAO. Miller Mogorno said, LOL. Miller Mogorno said, why didn't my radar missiles track? Malagio said, some are just born special from the factory. Malagio said, that's why I give mine names, they all are different. Schmied76 said, I try not to get attached to mine. Blaze Dragon said, why is Paula so based? Malagio said, we have the best verses. Malagio said, PBS can't compete. Malagio said, compete asterisk. Mr. Jade said, TRBEN. Blaze Dragon said, do we FW Zoata Piaguning? Malagio said, I watched it in my childhood, no way I am gooning to that. Yamame.Tuki said, see with everything. Malagio said, they wouldn't be good either. Honorary Sloth said, ew. Yamame.Tuki said, suppression of enemy air defense. Schmied76 said, stop using IR missiles on brawlers. Schmied76 said, it doesn't work. Blaze Dragon said, watching Step Emra RN. Yamame.Tuki said, see. Blaze Dragon said, oh funny time. Malagio said, when will Step Emra eat another expired PLA ration and die again? Blaze Dragon said, it wasn't even expired here LMAO. Malagio said, LOL, but they certainly improved a lot. Schmied76 said, that is a lot of nukes. Blaze Dragon said, F. Schmied76 said, all our hangars are dead. Blaze Dragon said, where are yours targeting? Yamame.Toki said, use this money. Schmied76 said, well, almost all of ours.
Raise gear.
Malagio said, I hope we don't lose our Toyota factories TWT. Malagio said, BDF looking very empty. Malagio said, this doesn't seem fair. Rustler of Jimmy's said, I just never have played BDF. Rustler of Jimmy's said, never will. Honorary Slav said, BDF deserves some more love. Schmied76 said, I'm always with the BDF. Blaze Dragon said, they're getting a new boat. Arnold said, BDF on top. Honorary Slav said, and also why does your name rhyme with a furry toy website? Blaze Dragon said, I'd top a BDF soldier. Honorary Slav said, don't ask me how I know that. Malagio said, whose name? Honorary Slav said, Blaze Dragon. Malagio said, we will make our ones chrome and shiny then flex on them. Blaze Dragon said, cause I am a furry. Arnold said, just playing Polybacos of NOCS right now. Mr. Jade said, I'm BDF's top guy. Honorary Slav said, BDF deserves the love. Rustler of Jimmy said, no. Malagio said, I joined Paula because it had less players when I joined. Honorary Slav said, I'm usually a Paula main but I'm switching sides. Rustler of Jimmy said, BDF deserves AGMs. The Lazy Leakin said, damn. Honorary Slav said, glory to BDF. Schmied76 said, no hangers. Honorary Slav said, I'm a defector. Blaze Dragon said, I love Palau. Arnold said, the Pala tanks are way stronger. Rustler of Jimmy's said, correction, Pala is way stronger. Malagio said, if I knew how to switch factions I would. Blaze Dragon said, you can't. Mr. Jade said, Pala has driv. Spectral_Ace said, leave and rejoin. Rustler of Jimmy's said, no. Blaze Dragon said, oh. Blaze Dragon said, nuke. Spectral_Ace said, oh right, yeah, NBM. Rustler of Jimmy's said, you can't after you join once. Malagio said, this will soon just become a match of PvE. Blaze Dragon said, oh. Blaze Dragon said, I'm dead. Malagio said, how could they do that to you? Blaze Dragon said, dude. Blaze Dragon said, you know that scene from the AUK MW1? Malagio said, if only nukes discriminated. Blaze Dragon said, when the nuke goes off and the helo goes down. Blaze Dragon said, that's what happened. Blaze Dragon said, spinning and all. Malagio said, I played a Call of Duty game for like 1 hour 8 years ago. Refact 0R said, I just joined WTF, are these teams LOL? Blaze Dragon said, peak. Honorary Sloth said, BDF needs a buff. Honorary Sloth said, BDF needs more drip. Malagio said, BDF needs a Space Force. Spectral_Ace said, Yamame
Raise
nuked
gear.
everything super early, their team did nothing to intercept. Blaze Dragon said, come kill me BDF. Blaze Dragon said, you won't. Honorary Sloth said, shut up furry toy collector. Honorary Sloth said, we all know you do that. Blaze Dragon said, oh so scary. Blaze Dragon said, W/E. Blaze Dragon said, I pay my taxes. Honorary Sloth said, and collect toys that you hide from your mother probably. Blaze Dragon said, I own my house LOL. Honorary Sloth said, notice how I said probably. Black Balkan said, this argument is funny with TDS on. Blaze Dragon said, FR. Rustler of Jimmy said, I always keep TDS on. Blaze Dragon said, anyways, capping Maris. Honorary Sloth said, nah. Malagio said, BDeep souls keep losing, Palachuds keep buying all property on Maris Port. Arnold said, lovely. Honorary Sloth said, seriously bro. Blaze Dragon said, landing RN. Yamame.Tuki said, wow, nice blaze. Rustler of Jimmy's said, BDF kooks watching Paula take their airstrips from the chair. Mr. Jade said, TRBENs. Mr. Jade said, Paula for life. Full Metal said, that Miku skin is peak. Mr. Jade said, THX. Blaze Dragon said, no one stopped me from capping Maris heliport, so I just used that as a jump off point LMAO. Full Metal said, always forget this is a great spectating game. Arnold said, nice. Arnold said, 2 for 1. Schmied76 said, we have like 3 guys on our team, L. Schmied76 said. Mr. Jade said, 4 guys. Blaze Dragon said, common BDFL. Honorary Slav said, I think Paula are the incels. Malagio said, do we just have to slog over to BDF fleet now? Arnold said, GG. Full Metal said, yeah, that's why I didn't join LMAO, I figured it was about to end. Full Metal said, like that. Malagio said, BDF for life. Blaze Dragon said, I love BDF. Spectral_Ace said, yeah, you still here? Duke Dankin said, there's a player list you know. Spectral_Ace said, I can see players not on a team. Malagio said, it's almost like they are invisible. Duke Dankin said, oh, interesting. Malagio said, it's asterisk. Spectral_Ace said, I was trying to not be on the same team as them. Malagio said, Paula tank better than BDF tank blah blah, all of them eat ADP the same.
Stall. Right engine.
Spectral_Ace said, crap, not the team I meant to join. Duke Dankin said, arguing about who has better ground units is like arguing whose missile have nicer paint on them. Duke Dankin said, same impact on who is going to win. Rustler of Jimmy said, your mom eats my ADP the same. Schmied76 said, everyone always immediately leaves BDF to go to Paula. Super said, not me.
Left engine fire.
Protects. Malagio said, they can't handle BDF style. Rustler of Jimmy said, real recognizes real. Malagio said, we have better climate controlled hangars. Malagio said, Paula sweat in their cement boxes. Rustler of Jimmy's said, Paula don't sweat in the first place. Blaze Dragon said, took y'all an ember raising long time to get me. Rustler of Jimmy's said, so we don't need amenities. OJ_Simpson said, I wish you could switch PPL as spec via CMD. Super said, least insane Paula propaganda.
Raise gear.
Malagio said, my little 5 pebble blocking my munition counter. Malagio said, not fair. Duke Dankins said, hit those helipads before Jack Nivis necromancy on SBGA. Malagio said, Full Metal, can you type in chat so I can see your full uncensored name? Full Metal said, my cat just meowed in 2 full syllables. Super said, me, out. Super said, feed equals me. Malagio said, that's cute, but I think the full uncensored name got fixed how many updates ago. Dizzy13ND said, WTF. Malagio said, MRRRRP, we BDF make best kittens. Blaze Dragon said, I lock. Full Metal said, fisted.
Right engine
Full
fire.
Metal said, it's. Full Metal said, out. Black Falcon said, can I introduce him to my friend and Full Metal said, that bomb was big. Black Falcon said, SB Airport can be capped now. Full Metal said, y'all vibe coding a game? Malagio said, we finally give pile drivers an IR seeker they deserve. Malagio said, when asterisk. Full Metal said, I've been vibe coding this cool roguelike. Rustler of Jimmy's said, I'm gonna cap someone give me air cover. Malagio said, I hope no one saw me crash on landing my 90 million airframe. Super said,
Right engine fire. Left engine fire.
Super said, 20 seconds out. Duzu Miffer 13ND said, I am still alive MF. Full Metal said, so many way DOS, sad face. Malagio said, what does that mean? Full Metal said, I don't want you to see me, sad face. Duzu Miffer 13ND said, radar. Super said, shoulda read chat. Duzu Miffer 13ND said, radars, sad face. Rustler of Jimmy's said, I crashed while typing. Rustler of Jimmy's said, I didn't even get hit. Rustler of Jimmy's said, I didn't even get hit. Malagio said, it is 2 AM, there is no way I could remember immediately furry language. Malagio said, I am sorry for my stupidity. Duke Dankins said, don't text while flying. Rustler of Jimmy's said, I crashed while typing. Duzu Miffer 13ND said, what kind of server is this? Rustler of Jimmy's said, excuses for not getting hit by the arm. Super said, say on. Full Metal said, I love flying drunk. Super said, number twins. Duzu Miffer 13ND said, that a lie. Malagio said, a cute one. Full Metal said, love to hop on Splane 12 in VR with my air hauler company. Full Metal said, we need a better program than air hauler. Full Metal said, oh. Full Metal said, I did not look at where I was flying on account of me being drunk. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, Full Metal B but Lord TT. Full Metal said, I just ran into the ground. Rustler of Jim
Right
said,
engine fire,
I think I've
left
crashed
engine
more
fire.
than anything else ever. Sad face. Spectral _ Ace said, thanks OJ. Malagio said, same. Full Metal said, chat's deadly man. Spectral _ Ace said, I can only dodge so much. Full Metal said, my screen's too big, I have to like look in the corner. Malagio said, I actually never play PvP, I am just so used to typing crap on PvE chat. Full Metal said, 45 screen. Homework said, you using a TV, /. Homework said, damn. Full Metal said, nah. Full Metal said, the big LG 5K 2K display. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, the butt lord I. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, Mir Jimet. Rustler of Jimmy said, MO. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, Mice.
Stall.
Full Metal said, love the thing, it's a great monitor. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, I'm gonna get it. Full Metal said, 165 Hz at full res. Super said, does Anyone have a curved monitor? Full Metal said, me. Super said, does it work well for this game? Duzu Mithra 13ND said, I have an Intel laptop. Full Metal said, I like it. Full Metal said, went from a regular 4K monitor to this and it's great. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, wonderful landing. Rustler of Jimmy's. Full Metal said, you get to use those really high FOV settings in games. Full Metal said, and if you position it right you fill up your full vision with screen. Super said, gun. Super said, the Dree /M. Duzu Method 13ND said, ATF server, please don't kill me doc. Malagio said, how can you see entire screen if screen big? Malagio said, need small screen. Full Metal said, I think I paid $1,000 for this big one. Malagio said,
Left
I
engine
have
fire.
no funny eyes, I had predator eyes, roar. Full Metal said, there's a bigger Odyssey model as well. Duzu Mifra 13ND said, WTH bro. Full Metal said, but that was too big for my desk. Duzu Mifra 13ND said, Full Metal gonna get. Duzu Mifra 13ND said, hee hee har har meet my Arad. Full Metal said, yeah you did get me. Full Metal said, no speed to dodge it. Malagio said, hey our Strato site. Full Metal said, I was wondering what the hell you were talking about LMAO. Duzu Mifra 13ND said, they need to make it OS you can exit chat without sending a message. Full Metal said, ESC. Malagio said, I just do Control A then Control X. Duzu Mifra 13ND said, straight face, damn. Full Metal said, yeah ESC. Full Metal said, LOL. Duzu Mifra 13ND said, I can fist the fister but I need to fist the fister and escape thee. Rustler of Jimmy's said, yo BDF furry. Full Metal said, that's an accessibility thing, pretty much everything you can just hit ESC in a text input and cancel it. Blaze Dragon said, no. Blaze Dragon said, please don't kill me. Spectral_Ace said, peekaboo. Duzu Mifra 13ND said, these residents are too evil. Homework said, say that again. Full Metal said, I'm in a jet mother uppers. Duzu Mifra 13ND said, go back in the cricket. Super said, roof. Malagio said, only now did Paula figure out jets? Thy spy guy said, super get in the BC. OJ_Simpson said, yet ignoring is rude, happy face. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, Gunfist. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, Gunfight. Full Metal said, RIP. Super said, not RN Spy Guy, I'm vibing not chatting. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, NDM. Guy Spy Guy said, AOL.
Right engine fire.
Full Metal said, I'm telling you, man, you can already make real tools totally with AI. Full Metal said, I've built tons. Super said, what program Full Metal? Duke Dankins said, LOL. Full Metal said, #1 workshop downloader for Steam. Full Metal said, I haven't released it. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, Coney please catch the missile. Super said, what do you use to build it? Full Metal said, Gemini and Codex. Full Metal said, I don't code at home. Full Metal said, I do it for work so I just vibe code at home for fun. Full Metal said,
Right
plug in
engine
an auto
fire.
link, a mod list link, or a mod, or I think even just a regular search feature and it will download them. Full Metal said, but nice. Full Metal said, real simple. Malagio said, I was thinking you were going to live that Simpson. Malagio said, losing a wing on an Ifrit is nothing. Full Metal said, just builds a script file for Steam and then runs it on it. OJ_Simpson said, yeah but it eat my moral. Full Metal said, Steam gets mad at like 300 ISH downloads though. Malagio said, see. Full Metal said, there's Steam Workshop downloaders out there, but mine's way better. Duzu Mithra 13ND said, lay PvP more increasing their national debt. Full Metal said, I built it because I was at the ones available. Mr. Jade said, hello everyone. Super said, howdy. Full Metal said, I'm gonna go smoke. OJ_Simpson said, I made a app for automatically modeling MRI pictures into 3D model. It works but the model looks like LOL. Full Metal said, that sounds fun. Full Metal said, have you tried applying some sort of heuristic smoothing between slices? Quiet_Vigil said, is there a way to hide from enemies on the map? Rustler of Jimmy's said, yup, lower RCS and knock out radars. Super said, guh. Rustler of Jimmy's said, turn off radar. OJ_Simpson said, haha, yeah, I made it in one day and since then I'm so astonished that it's working that I did not spend any time anymore. OJ_Simpson said, but translation of slices is the issue, happy face. Full Metal said, certainly just some tuning to be done. Super said, double guh. Thy Spy Guy said, cricket slop time. Thy Spy Guy said, can't wait to get touched. Mr. Jade said, it's not a real word. DuzuMiffin13ND said, I'm sorry but two Dark Reaches decided they didn't enjoy your presence. Blaze Dragon said, easy. DuzuMiffin13ND said, I'm not sorry.
Left engine fire.
Dimensionalisive said, wow, it's getting crowded. Malagio said, Rustler of Jimmy's, leave me alone. Malagio said, let me jam your things in peace. Rustler of Jimmy's said, someone knock out the wax. Light_Gladiator said, damn. Rustler of Jimmy's said, never. DuzuMiffra13ND said, rustle them. Rustler of Jimmy's said, Paula would never allow you warfare. Rustler of Jimmy's said, we fight like me. OJ_Simpson said, "It is what it is. Nukes were available and cheap." N-Dimensionalisib said, "Island getting so nuked." Super said, "Paula can't figure EU warfare out." N-Dimensionalisib said, "Wrong chat." OJ_Simpson said, "Prepare for anti-air nukes." Super said, 3 degrees too complicated. Rustler of Jimmy's said, "Oh." Duzu Mitra 13ND said, "MSV? When they add those." Light_Gladiator said, "Damn." N-Dimensionalisib said, "Oh no, the enrichment plan." Light_Gladiator said, "This update I think." N-Dimensionalisib said, "We're so Joey Ver." Light_Gladiator said, "No Stratos left?" Malagio said, "Don't get close to me, I got secret BDF megawatt laser on my Medusa." Thy Spy Guy said, "Brew." Thy Spy Guy said, "Can I kill anything TT?" Duzu Mitra 13ND said, "Does anyone remember the play test?" Thy Spy Guy said, "Made like 3 runs and gotten like 5 points."
Stall.
Duzu Mitra 13ND said, "CYA." Full Metal said, "Thank God for the crowns." Malagio said, "Paula finally figured out late Cold War technology." OJ_Simpson said, "Yeah, a compass sticked with a nuke." Malagio said, "More like manned cruise missile." Mr. Jade said, "Paula boys, I think we may not win this." N-Dimensionalisib said, "Shoot." Super said, "Imagine aura farming in a manned cruise missile." Super said, "Giga chat." Malagio said, "Strap me to a missile and fire me at Maris Port, I am ready." Super said, "Tooraloo."
Raise gear.
Gladiator said, the space shuttle technically was a pretty big cruise missile. Blaze Dragon said, TRBTHN. Super said, insufficient explosions. Super said, only 2. Light_Gladiator said, and damn well could have been really deadly if you put some presents in there. OJ_Simpson said, WTF.
Raise gear.
Shane said, that's all. OJ_Simpson said, there flew a PDF plane right over her field like nothing. Rustler of Jimmy said, PDF. Rustler of Jimmy said, more like PDF. Malagio said, is this now a screaming battle?
Left engine fire.
Malagio said, thanks for obliterating Dankins. Duke Dankins said, leave me alone. Duke Dankins said, stop jamming or I will kill you. Malagio said, slop talk. Mr. Jade said, need someone to jam me with love FR. Super said, take no prisoners. Quiet_Vigil said, jam harder y'all LOL. OJ_Simpson said, I have the feeling they ignoring the compass. Super said, I got you. Mr. Jade said, TTHXQ. Malagio said, is Paula trying to jam radome at Compass Army? OJ_Simpson said, so close. Mr. Jade said, good one. N-Dimensionalisib said, Dark Reach about to our fleet. Mr. Jade said, LMAO you've got me with a laser rocket. Malagio said, come for Dankins. Malagio said, come give Papa a hug. Gladiator said, glorious BDF 20 MMS. Shoop said, SOME1 PLS escort me to drop at Vigil Clay Naval. Shoop said, jackknife. Duke Dankin said, give me a minute to land first. Said,
Left engine fire. Right engine fire.
4 seconds out. Super said, 40 asterisk. Dimensional Asib said, not home, return to sender. Super said, jams. Duke Dankin said, performing cap for Vigil K repair. N-dimensional Asib said, marmalades. Super said, DX. Thy spy guy said, I'm getting touched unconsensually by a Medusa jammer. Mr. Jade said, what kind of music y'all listen to when flying? Rustler of Jimmy said, I'm listening to some drum and bass. Little Sneeze said, Ace combat music. Rustler of Jimmy said, or EDM. Aim 9 Sidewinder said, Paramore. Little Sneeze said, so orchestra I guess. air traffic while playing this game. Carousel friends said, jamming failed.
Left engine fire. Right engine fire. Stall.
Guy Spy Guy said, CIT you didn't jam TT. OJ_Simpson said, GG.